Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where each episode is graded like a school project, starting with 100 points, and 1 point taken away for each error, mainly plot holes, plot devices, continuity errors, set errors, starting mismatches, and anything else I can think of. Today we rip apart the first episode of the second season, Amok Time, where we learn about the Vulcan birds and bees, and it turns out those Vulcan bees can be pretty vicious. We also learn the real secret behind the Vulcan wedding ceremony. And as usual, most images here are stills to prevent copyright claims. And here we take the first point. The chief medical officer would never talk to the captain of the ship about someone's medical condition like this in the hallway where everyone can hear. And we learn Nurse Chapel knows how to make Vulcan plomeek soup. But what is a plomeek? After 50 years, you'd think they would have said what it is. The secret is out. Kirk and McCoy are gossips. Spock moved into Yeoman Rand's quarters. What Nurse Chapel didn't know was that plomeek soup is actually a sport to see how far you can throw it. And it's pretty obvious Spock is really upset. The next point is lost because of this argument, since Spock is close to 50 years old and has plenty of leave time saved up. He should have known this was going to happen, especially if there's a wedding involved. I mean, seriously, this has been going on for the past 10,000 years on Vulcan. Is Spock holding a knife? The next point is lost since Kirk is in a hurry to get to Altair 6, but he only diverts to Vulcan at Warp 4, when they can travel at Warp 7 and go to both in a fraction of the time. After all, Spock is scheduled to compete in the plomeek throwing competition. The next point is lost for the captain's log talking down to the audience. There must have been some serious channel surfers in the 1960s if you need to remind everyone what is going on every 15 minutes. Now here's the big problem. The inauguration on Altair 6 has been moved forward by a week. This would never happen unless their government is at risk of being overthrown again, or it already has been. Chekhov says they need to travel at Warp 6 to get there on time. If Spock put in for leave like he's known for the past 7 years, or Kirk said to go there at Warp 7 instead of Warp 4, there would be none of these problems. But neither of them did it, so now we have this episode because of their poor planning. Finagle's laws really do exist. They are like Murphy's laws and can be found in pulp science fiction stories of the early 1900s. Now, as Kirk calls the bridge, you will notice a mark on the monitor. Either every monitor on the ship has this same mark, or the set crew has not cleaned off their one monitor they use over and over again, so minus 1 point. So the ship has changed direction and Kirk didn't notice, but maybe you can't at warp speed. We really won't know for a few hundred more years, but we do know one thing, Spock is in deep shit now. You know Kirk is pissed when he poses like Peter Pan. He can't even look at Spock right now. Shout out to Kirk here, and instead of going off on Spock, he realizes something is wrong, so sends him to sickbay. Spock is a very reluctant patient. This is the first aired episode with Chekhov, and one of the rare times Chekhov and Sulu are at the helm together. And another point is lost here for continuity. Vulcans have been around humans long enough for a doctor in Starfleet to know what is going on. After all, Spock is not the only Vulcan in Starfleet, and there are several Vulcans on Earth. And McCoy is a doctor, he should figure this one out on his own. And Spock won't tell because he's as tight-lipped as an Aldebaran shellmouth. To all the dads out there, when you give your son the birds and the bees talk, if your son is in an arranged marriage, and after 30 years in a world of mass communication, this is the most recent photo he has of her, it is a red flag something is wrong. Before I get to the birds and the bees talk, has anyone noticed how many times Spock's shirt is rumpled in the back? This is an excellent birds and bees scene for Star Trek, not to be missed, so be sure to watch the actual thing. Spock explains how savage Vulcans become at this time and how dangerous it is. In short, Spock has the DSBs, also known as the deadly sperm buildup. Seriously, what do you expect after 7 years? I'll be honest, I thought that was how Vulcans choose their mates also. Poor Spock, he confesses very personal information, and this is what Kirk says to him. That's why he smashed the monitor. Why does McCoy collect skulls? Look closely, McCoy's monitor also has the same mark. And the next point is lost since no one thought of Spock taking a ship from Altair 6 to Vulcan. This ceremony is so big, there must be tons of space traffic there right now. I think this is how many times they changed course. He's had plenty of practice. Of course, this time they won it at Warp 8. Why did they do that the first time? And how did he get away with saying that on 60s TV? So how did Nurse Chapel get into Spock's quarters? Did she break in with a medical pass? Or did Spock give her a key to his room? Maybe there is something going on between them after all. Spock needs to practice for the throwing competition. We are now orbiting Vulcan. And there she is. Look out, Spock. Ignore that Vulcan mushy talk. Anytime a girl goes 30 years with the same hairstyle, it's a red flag. And the next point is lost when they land on Vulcan. Spock says this is the land of his family, so where is his family? They've known about this for 30 years. Of course, Spock didn't put in for leave either. Their family isn't really good at planning ahead, are they? We'll learn what this means later. Kirk is going to learn that in 10,000 years, nothing has changed. I have to take another point because they did not beam down in their dress uniforms. And this is the only time we ever hear this phrase. This is very important information here. Here, Spock explains that arranged marriages with a mind meld make sure the couple always goes through the Pon Far together. And here comes T'Pau. If his family was this important, how come they didn't show up? Here is T'Pau, a very prominent figure in Vulcan politics. Here is T'Pring. Look out, Spock. The words that describe her can't be said on YouTube. Just beam back up. Nurse Chapel will take care of you. You know it's a bad sign when your bride doesn't change her hairstyle for the wedding. And here is Stan. He looks so serious. But wait, wasn't he Decius on a Romulan ship? And where are his parents? Obviously Sark doesn't approve of this either. And Sybok, who was exiled for being happy. And his sister, who caused a Klingon war, committed mutiny, and escaped into the future. She's like, do I really have to be a part of this family? Of course, she's a little schemer too. She'll fit right in. This is the first time we see the Vulcan salute. Now she grabs Spock's ear. Is she a Bajoran Kai, or is this Vulcan Umox? We will never know. They're like, what's she doing to his ears? Spock can't even look at her. That Vulcan Umox did him in. So, translating from Vulcan to English is a little shoddy here. T'Pau's use of the words thee and thy are a little mixed up. However, I can't take any points here since a mix-up of this type is possible. And they're still like, what did she do to his ears? This is Vulcan for ring the bells. T'Pring makes her move. Stan's like, I can take them. Vulcan women really take advantage of Vulcan men at this time. We can't tell Spock to just walk away since she isn't worth it, because he is caught up in the blood fever. So Spock is screwed. This can be taken several different ways. Anytime a girl wants two guys to fight just to boost her ego, she isn't worth it. Just move on. Does this remind you of anyone here on Earth? And T'Pring says she is willing to become his property. She is totally manipulating the system for it to be the other way around. It's pointless to ask Spock if he accepts. He's in his own world right now. Kirk knows what's up. This brings up a good point, since Stan isn't Pon Faring, Spock is at a disadvantage. But T'Pring plans to manipulate them even more, since she doesn't want her little man-boy toy to be injured. She chooses Kirk. One word of advice, never give a Vulcan woman 30 years to plan a wedding. Stan complains about it, but he's put in his place pretty quick. T'Pau doesn't want to stop it at all, because she was promised a good man fight. The next point is lost here, since Spock is supposed to be in the blood fever, but Leonard Nimoy is over there in the corner, just chilling. Spock pleads with T'Pau, but she says, no, I want to watch the fight. When does Spock get a purple belt? McCoy is concerned Kirk will get hurt, but Kirk doesn't want Spock to fight Stan. Look how much influence T'Pau has getting Kirk in the ring. How many other times has she done this? T'Pring doesn't care who gets hurt, as long as it's not her boy toy. This could be taken more than one way. These don't look like Romulan helmets at all. And the games have begun. And this is when they learn it's a fight to the death. This is why T'Pau is officiating. She may be high up in Vulcan politics, but she also loves gladiator movies. McCoy stands up to her, but T'Pau wants to see a good fight. This is the first time you hear the famous Star Trek fight music. Ironically, the first time you hear it is on Vulcan, a planet that is generally pacifist. I figured the music would first appear on a show with Klingons. And another point is lost here because you can tell they are stunt doubles. T'Pau defends Vulcan air. Here comes halftime. McCoy lies to T'Pau. Can you believe that? He's onto her and knows she just wants to watch them fight as long as possible. McCoy doesn't tell Kirk what he's really injecting him with either. Here comes what T'Pau has been waiting for all this time. Men and whips. She's just a dirty old woman, isn't she? Kirk is about to kill Spock. His bride. She looks so concerned. Kirk is now dead, and Spock is in command. But Vulcan is a Federation planet. There should be a starbase on Vulcan, so -1 point. Here comes T'Pring's explanation. Mainly, she is a little witch that can't be trusted, and doesn't want to be married to someone famous because all of her dirt will be exposed. She'd rather be the queen of her own castle with her little boy toy to boss around all day long. Spock tells it like it is to Stan, but Stan will never learn. The first time we see this legendary phrase, Spock is upset that he killed Kirk, but T'Pau says, "Don't worry, you put on a good show." Spock went home to introduce his friends to his new wife and get laid, and now he is all alone. His own mother didn't even show up to his wedding. Aww. When Spock returns to the Enterprise, he smiles when he sees Kirk's alive again. Then McCoy explains how he cheated the system. And we learn that killing your boss makes you forget about sex. And T'Pau approved the delay of the Enterprise. Of course, she did just officiate a gladiator match where the captain got killed. Seriously, that's the least she could do. I bet she does this all the time in her position, and no one has figured it out yet. And now comes the funny ending where Kirk and McCoy needle Spock about his emotional outburst. So according to Star Trek and fan websites, Spock is about 37 in this show, and T'Pring would also be 37, since they were joined at the age of 7. And they act like they have never met in all that time. But if Pon Far happens every 7 years, what did Spock do at age 16, 23, and 30? It's easy to answer for T'Pring. She did everyone on Vulcan, and Stan is too much of a dimwit to figure that out. Makes you wonder. However, Spock does have options. And remember, dads, when you're giving your son the birds and the bees talk, remind him girls like this are the reasons girls like this make so much money. The Season 2 opener has a lot of firsts. The first time we see Chekhov. The first time we see the Plumik soup throwing competition. We learn about Spock's first time. The first time we see McCoy's office and his collection of skulls. The first time we see Vulcan. The first time we hear the Star Trek fight music, and some other music as well. The first Vulcan hand salute, and live long and prosper. And we learn the Pon Far is simply a 10,000-year-old tradition, so Vulcan women can manipulate and have their way with Vulcan men, simply to quench their thirst for live gladiator shows. This is why Sarek said, "Screw that shit, I'm marrying a human wife." That's why Spock gets grief all the time for being half Vulcan, because his father didn't get shafted like all the other Vulcan men. And that's the real story. Stan should have taken Sarek's advice when they were posing as Romulan. I guess you won't be seeing this soon, which means this won't happen either. But maybe this will happen. So, who were the Vulcans? Byron Morrow was a World War II vet, lived to be 94, and has 230 screen credits. We will see him again next year as a different admiral. Celia Lovsky was born in Austria-Hungary and was in her first film in 1930, and has 125 acting credits, including Soylent Green. Lawrence Montaigne has 70 screen credits, played a Romulan and a Vulcan, and plays Stan one more time in the indie Star Trek film of Gods and Men. And the beautiful Arlene Martell grew up in a poor section of the Bronx, played several roles, including Tiger in Hogan's Heroes and an adulteress in Battlestar Galactica. We won't see T'Pring anymore, but we will see T'Pau later on in Star Trek Enterprise. Did she ever learn Kirk was still alive? Does she even care? Next week on Star Trek, we learn Battlestar Galactica stole their plot.
They don't believe in physical contact between genders, which comes once only every 7 years.
None of those little buggers are such good card players.
So don't worry, Spock, you are not alone. And Amok Time gets a whopping score of 89%. Thanks for viewing. One more thing while you're checking out these rare photos, click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, buy a copy of my book, and check out my other videos and playlists, and come back soon.